exactly right. And that's the story that I got from the individuals. You know, another story I told earlier this morning that emitted some emotion, and when I start talking about it, I get a little choked up. I went around the corner of this tangled mess house. I don't know what it was. And there was a little 7-year-old boy there. And Vince, he had a football in his hand. And he looked at me and he said, "Sir, will you play catch with me? Because nobody will play catch with me." And I'm like, it just caught me off guard, because I'm like, I'm looking around and it's Armageddon. And this kid wants to play football. And it just hit me in the heart, you know, and I looked at him and I thought to myself, well, that's not what I came down here for, but you know what? This little kid hasn't experienced normalcy in 48 hours. And I said, sure. And I did. And we were throwing the football right there among the devastation. And I started talking to him while I was throwing the football. And I said, "Where's your home?" And he turned around and showed and pointed to his home. He said, "There was my home." And it was just a concrete slab. It was gone. His home was gone. And I said, as we were throwing the football, I said, "Well, where did you go? What did you do?" And he pointed over to a loading dock, a concrete loading dock that you load trucks, trucking supplies off of. They crawled, him and his mom and his dad and his family crawled underneath the concrete loading dock, and he said he watched his house blow away. Now, this 7-year-old boy will remember that moment for the rest of his life.
Absolutely. And you know, that concrete loading dock is still there, but the building that was on top of it is gone.
That's right.
And so were all the trucks that were parked there. They were blown away, too. It's just amazing that family has survived. And what would that be like, listening to 200-mile-an-hour winds and projectiles going by them at 200 miles an hour, whizzing by them?
It's a miracle that they didn't get hit and killed. And a little boy, he brought me over. I told him I was going to have to leave and go help some other people. And he said, "Can you take a look at my Xbox?" And I did. It was wet, and obviously it was not going to work. And he looked at me and said, "Do you think my Xbox will ever work again?" And I you know, I mean, when I think about that story, I just get emotional. Through all the devastation of the Armageddon, here's a little boy whose world is upside down, and that's really the only thing he could think of at that moment. You know, we went from there, Vince, and we spoke with an 80-year-old lady. Describe the scene of these people that we walked up to their house.
Well, Mark, they found some plastic chairs. And these were all senior citizens kind of sitting around looking in a semicircle toward a totally devastated apartment building about a quarter of a mile away. It looked like it was ripped to shreds. And they were right in front of them was a concrete pad. It looked like a little patio. That patio used to be their house. Their house was attached to that patio. Mm-hmm. And strewn all around them was rubble that was their house, their furniture. And they were just sitting there in shock. Yeah. They were in shock, but they weren't complaining. They weren't saying, you know, why did this happen to me? They, you know, one of the threads that seems to run through all of these stories, one thread that's almost universal, if not universal, is it's just stuff. And that's the word they use. Yeah. They use stuff. And what that means is all of everything that I've ever worked for and accumulated in my entire life is just stuff. And it's all gone, but it's not so bad. Yeah. We'll get through it because
that's right.
Because we still have a pulse, and
our family's alive. Yeah, and I spoke with that little 80-year-old lady, and I asked her what happened, and she said, "Well, we heard the storm coming, heard the sirens, and we went out to the shop because it's a steel structure, and we thought we'd be safer there." And she said after the storm hit, it collapsed the shop upon her and her daughter,
right.
And they were trapped in there for almost 2 hours. And I said, "Well, how did you get out?" And she goes, "We were screaming, and my family heard us," which I couldn't believe it. And she said they were there for 2 hours. The family finally pulled her out and the daughter out, and they took me to where they pulled her out of, around the shop, which is like around probably 50 feet from where we were at. And Vince, I had to climb over a mound of steel to get to the hole that they pulled her out of. Number one, I can't believe they heard her. Where all the steel was, and number two, I looked at the hole, and it wasn't no more but by 2 by 2 foot hole, and it was just completely still in materials and debris all around, and they had to pull her out by her ankles. I just cannot believe that anybody could survive in that. It's just like, you described it a while ago about processing food through an egg beater. That's what it looked like, and how anybody could come out of it alive is unbelievable.
This woman that you're talking about, if you want to imagine what this was like for her, imagine crawling under your desk, okay, and being in a crouched position under your desk, and staying in that position, unable to move for 2 hours, with piles of stuff on top of you, steel and concrete and wood and debris and water.
And water. She said she was laying in water. Matter of fact, she said she got sick to her stomach in the water, and I could imagine so.
Right, and it was just a terrible situation. And so who got her out, Mark? Why don't you tell that part of the story?
Yeah, her family came and pulled her out. Obviously, we can expand on that and some other stories that we heard down in Joplin, Missouri yesterday during the disaster recovery services that Vince and I participated in, and we'll be back after the bottom of the hour break. I'm Mark, and this is Vince on USA Prepares on 1340 AM, the Ozarks Big Talker.
Street when your index is low. Dow Jones ain't got time for the bonds. They'll wind up on Skid Row with holes in their pockets. They bleed with you.
Hey, this is Dave Ramsey, host of The Dave Ramsey Show.
6 p.m. and 5:01 p.m. here on AM 1340, the Ozarks Big Talker.
And we're back on USA Prepares on 1340 AM, the Ozarks Big Talker. I'm Mark Wright. I'm with my co-host, the original survival economist, Vincent Finelli. And Vince, when we went into the break at the bottom of the hour, we were talking about some of the stories of the tornado victims, the survival victims that we met yesterday in Joplin. And we were talking about the 80-year-old lady who got pulled out by her family. Six members of her family and some volunteers showed up, and they found her, and they pulled her out. And I, based upon what I saw and where she was at, if her family did not know where she was at, she'd have never been found. They would have found her when they were moving the rubble months down the road,
and maybe with a bulldozer.
Probably with a bulldozer. That's exactly. And unfortunately that situation is probably going to come to pass in the weeks and months heading down the road when it gets beyond the search and rescue efforts and it gets into debris removal.
Yeah, I agree with that. I'm looking around the studio, and I don't see any smiles here.
No. Well, it's a serious situation, and I think the message of this program today is people of Springfield, greater Springfield area, they're an hour down the road. You gotta go down and help them. They need your help
right now.
They need your help right now.
Guys, I'm sorry. You see that on Tuscaloosa. You saw pictures Tuscaloosa, and we've seen El Reno yesterday and all that. And it's tragic. I don't mean to minimize it,
sure,
but you couldn't be more right. Man, that's here. That's home.
Yeah.
That's an hour away. Yeah. We all know somebody in Joplin. We've all been over to Joplin.
That's right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That was as close to home. That was home.
It could have easily.
It was home.
Yeah, it could have easily been Springfield.
Yeah, it could have been Springfield.
Rob,
and I can't tell you enough. I know. I'm sorry, it's your show. I had to tell you.
No,
I agree with everything you're saying, and I see that. Well, I may do it now. Crap. You just well up. You just see it on TV. You see it on your website. Mm-hmm. You see the pictures, and you think, I don't know, where do they start?
Yeah.
Where would you start? I told my wife the other day, I said, would you even sift through and look for the pictures of your babies? Would you even bother, or would you walk away and say, I think I'll start over?
We can tell you. People are looking for those pictures of their family. That seems to be very, very important, because that's something that they can not replace. The other stuff is stuff, and that's what
Sure.
they call it. They can get another dresser, supposedly, if they're insured. They can get new bed sheets and new clothes. But you know what they really wanted? It's interesting, Rob, and I'm really glad to see. But I thought we were going to lose Rob a few minutes ago, Mark, when you were talking about the boy and the football. I thought we were going to lose our producer. He was very emotional, upset about it, and we were too. And
being there firsthand.
yeah,
I'm a dad. You guys are, but I don't even think you have to be. I think you have to have a heartbeat for this to get you.
Yeah.
And it got us all. Rob and Mark, let me tell you what the biggest request was. It's just unbelievable what they really want in Joplin. They asked us for garbage bags, heavy duty trash bags, so that they can gather their belongings, their clothes, their shoes, whatever they can find, and put it in a bag so they can carry it away.
They had nothing to put it in.
And so it wouldn't get wetter with the next rain. That's what they wanted. And not only that, they wanted something even more trivial than that. They really wanted Walmart-style shopping bags, the ones that the cashier puts your things in that you've just purchased.
True or false? Again, you've been there, I haven't. True or false? And my daughter has been over there helping. True or false? They want to talk about. They need to talk about
They
it.
do.
Is
They
that?
do.
I mean, do you agree or disagree?
I believe that they want to talk to
They
somebody.
need to tell the story.
The people that we saw had not seen anybody but family.
Yeah.
And they wanted to talk about their experience. It was almost like an emotional therapy session they were going through with us. And it was interesting because when people first spoke, when they first opened up, it was just like as a matter of fact. And then the more they talked, the more emotional they got. And then the next thing you know, you'd have a hug or people throwing their arm
let's
around
talk
you.
about.
I want to talk about one other thing real quick before we get into another story. One of the issues down there in Joplin is people, unfortunately, have passed away. There's a lot of people who have left, and they've left their animals. Their animals are running free. There's a lot of animals down there that have no owners. And Somo Ag Supply here in Springfield has graciously stepped up and is taking donations for animal supplies, for food, leashes, all these various things that these abandoned animals now need in Joplin. So if you have any interest in helping the animals, the abandoned animals of Joplin, Missouri, you can go down to Somo Ag Supply on West Kearney and donate money or supplies for the animals of Joplin, Missouri. So I just wanted to throw that out there. I'm sorry, Vince, go ahead.
Mark, just another word or two on that. These are animals that have owners, unless the owners have died. They're wandering around because they're lost. There are no cues. If you look for the place on the corner as your cue as to where you are, the place is gone.
Yeah, the landmarks are gone.
The landmarks are gone. So these animals are lost and confused, but they still need to eat, and they still need care, and they still need love. And Somo Ag, a friend of USA Prepares, by the way, is interested in coordinating that food drive. So if you can stop at Somo Ag on Kearney in Springfield, they would be glad to take your donation.
I've heard, by the way, and correct me if I'm wrong, I know Joplin well, very well, but I've heard that there is such devastation, the landscape is so changed that you literally have no idea where you are.
No.
What based on what was.
I was walking around and was told I was on, I think, 7th Street, and I'm like, I've drove down this street 100 times, and it didn't look like the 7th Street that I remember. It's completely utter destruction. And you're not looking up. You're not looking up at anything. You're looking down at everything. It's like a hand was just wiped 2 feet off the ground and everything is below you. There are a few buildings that are standing. We saw an apartment complex that literally looked like a nuclear bomb went off right next to it. The windows were gone. Everything was gone. And then we went by one house, Vince, which was really strange, and the entire back wall was missing. You remember those little doll houses your sister had when you were growing up, and one section of the wall was missing, and you could look in at all the furniture and all the art and things like that? That's exactly what we seen one house look like. The back wall was missing, and we looked in, and nothing was touched. It was all perfectly